If you're looking for the next best thing to invest in, try investing in your long-term health with Forward. Forward is intelligent medicine with a personal touch. Their doctors are dedicated to catching top killers like cancer and heart disease early, which could save you tens of thousands of dollars in the long run. So invest in a doctor that's invested in you. Visit GoForward.com to learn more about how Forward can help you manage your long-term health risks for one flat monthly fee. That's GoForward.com.
The last 12 months has changed our lives in ways which we never expected. Welcome to COVID Lives, a podcast series that looks at Irish lives during this extraordinary time in history. My name is Gavin Dowd, and I'm going to be speaking to people who have unique and meaningful stories to share about their lives throughout the pandemic. Whether it involved looking out for others, starting something new, or just finding ways to remain positive amidst the doom and gloom. Over the past year, we've all needed a laugh. And someone who's provided plenty of those has been internet comedian Steve-O Timothy. Steve-O has also spent the pandemic working on charity projects for the Irish Wheelchair Association, and he's currently preparing for a wheelchair boxing match against Irish boxer Paddy Barnes. Steve-O, for people that don't know you, tell me, who are you and what do you do?
I'm a chancer that done a farmer accent and got infamous for it. That's my introduction. A complete chancer, a tomfool.
They always say Irish people are terrible at talking themselves up. If you were American, Steve-O, and I asked you that question, you would have said, I'm a renowned internet comedian. I've been on CNN, I've been on Fox News.
Yeah, I'm one of the biggest internet comedians in the world. I'd say my videos have been viewed upwards of 80 billion trillion times.
So how has the pandemic affected what you do? Because what you do is mostly online. I know you have done live tours around Ireland, but how has it impacted us?
The tours mostly, like we were going to go over to the UK. I was in the middle of the Irish tour. So yeah, that all went by the wayside. So yeah, I'm just kind of, and then my Facebook page got taken down, and then it was like, oh God, this is it. That's the end of it. But yeah, just trying to, I suppose, trying to focus and just trying to come up with new skits and planning a bit behind the scenes and trying to come back bigger and badder and better.
Well, who'd have thought we'd be still in that phase at this point, well over a year later?
Yeah, the last gig I did was the 6th of March 2020. And our new tour isn't meant to start until January 2022. So yeah, that's a mad amount of time in between. I'd probably be crap. I probably won't even remember my name on stage, never mind the set.
Well, we'll get into some of the stuff that you've been doing throughout the pandemic in terms of comedy in a few minutes' time. But I would like to ask you about your charity work. You're heavily involved in the Irish Wheelchair Association. Can you tell me about how you got involved with them?
Well, my mother was a wheelchair user for a long time, so I kind of always was familiar with the work that they do and what they do and how much they love doing it. So it was always kind of a part of my life, I suppose. So then when the whole lockdown situation happened and all that started coming around and tours were cancelled and stuff, I was sitting here one day and I think they asked me would I share something or retweet something. So I just said, nah, I'll do you one better. So that kind of morphed from me going to cycle an exercise bike for a kilometre in my sitting room to me cycling 5 kilometres on a real bike. So yeah, that kind of took on a life of its own, like most things I do. So yeah, and I didn't die doing it. So it was a success, really.
Can you tell listeners who haven't heard of you before, what kind of challenge was that for you? And why was that such a big achievement?
Oh yeah, I didn't kind of elaborate. People are probably thinking, 5K, should I do that in my sleep? Yeah, I have incomplete paraplegia. I had a motorbike crash in 2005. So I broke my neck and my back. So I use a wheelchair and or crutches to get around. So yeah, so it was a tough undertaking, but my trainer Dara, he bet me into shape. So yeah.
And how many weeks training did that take you?
Oh, 4 or 5 months, I'd say.
Wow. Okay. And how many falls were involved along the way?
I think I only had 2 falls, which wasn't too bad. And that was only getting used to the bike at the beginning, because I had cycled a bike since my crash, but it was a long time. So it was to get used to the whole thing again and get, my core strength wouldn't be that strong. And I knew if my leg went down the side, I can't exactly or if I fall to one side, I can't exactly flick my leg out and stop myself. So it's like you're going to go out on your face or out on your side. So yeah, it took a while to get used to it. But once we kind of got used to that, then it was only a matter of straightening the legs up enough to carry me 5K. But the furthest we got, I think it was 12 and a half laps around the track. That was what 5K was. And up until the day of the cycle, we'd only managed near 7. So I was really thinking I wouldn't make it.
And what are you thinking in your head when you're doing those laps? And it's nearly maybe more torturous when you're doing it on a track, because you're counting in your head, I'm sure, and you're realizing how many more laps you've got to go. How did you keep yourself going mentally?
I think it was all the crowd there. It was all the crowd that pushed me on, and having my family there and everyone like that kind of, and every time I went around the track, people were applauding and stuff. So that kind of just like, it got me emotional, but it also kind of gave me the strength I need to proceed through it.
Have you been cycling since, or have you gotten up on the bike since?
No. I'm terrible. I remember saying to Dara, like, oh, I'm going to keep doing this now. This is the rush. I'm going to keep doing this. A year later, have you been up on the bike? No, I haven't. I think that torturous, that 5 months has put me off cycling forever.
Well, you seem to have upped the stakes altogether entirely with your next charity challenge, which you're also doing in aid of the Irish Wheelchair Association, which is coming in September, with your wheelchair boxing fight against the boxer Paddy Barnes. How did that come about?
Yeah, as always with everything I do, it just came about accidentally. I was asking on Twitter, the good old hive mind, like, does anyone out there do like MMA for people in wheelchairs or boxing or anything? And then Paddy was like, I'll have a few bouts with you or whatever. And I was like, would you though? And he was like, yeah. And then like it just got into my head. Then I just said, would you actually do something for charity? And he was like, in his imperceptible Belfast, I'm going to make a charity. So I was like, yeah. Then it was on. So yeah. So I kind of, I think I put the GoFundMe up nearly immediately, and donations started coming in, and then a few like anonymous people donated like $5,000 and stuff, and then Conor McGregor donated $10,000 and retweeted it, different things about it, about 6 or 7 times. So that really kind of blew it up and got the public kind of aware of it.
And how much money have you raised at this stage?
I think we're at about 32 now. It's kind of plateaued in the last while, but I am worrying about it as always, but I wouldn't worry about it too much.
When you say worrying about the fight or the money?
Oh, I don't give a damn about the fight. It's about raising as much as we possibly can. Don't mind the fight. If I get my nose broken, so be it. As long as we raise 50 grand or something, it's worth it.
So a bike ride is one thing. Getting into a ring with a professional boxer in a wheelchair is another thing. What kind of preparation has gone into this?
I was up to Pete Taylor, Katie Taylor's dad. I was up with Phil Sutcliffe. He was one of Conor McGregor's boxing coaches. I'm going to be up with Packy Collins soon. Then when Conor McGregor comes back from America, I'm going to be going up to SBG with John Kavanagh. So I'm having the best in Ireland, well, not even Ireland, the world, training me. So even that alone is like, to tell the grandkids someday kind of job. You know what I mean? It's just amazing.
Now, the fighting is one part of it. Before the fight begins, though, so much of it is the psychological fight, the trash talk. Yeah. And you're a very funny man, and you put a lot of smiles on many people's faces. How are you going to terrify Paddy Barnes before the fight?
I'm going to terrify him by not being too bothered. Because I think that will get to him more than anything, because he's used to all the trash talk. Because when we first announced it, I put up a video or two, me being pure take, all this Paddy Barnes talking crap about me online and blah, blah, blah. But people didn't take to it too fondly, because they thought, like, I get loads of comments, you're bigger than this, man, don't fall into that kind of trap. And I'm like, no, this is part of it. And I was like, all right, no, this is not going to work. So we're just going to have to do the kind of nice promos and the nice kind of the emotional side of it, rather than the me getting take with him side, because that my crowd don't like it.
Okay, so you're not going to stoop down to his level, is what you're saying?
We will a bit, because more people know about it now, I suppose. It'd be awful tough for me to stoop down to his level, because he's about 5'2" or something.
Yeah. On a more serious note, there's a line that you mentioned in an interview when you were talking about your role with the Irish Wheelchair Association, and I thought this resonated quite a lot. You said, the isolation that we've all been feeling over the past year and a bit, that this is what a lot of disabled people experience all the time. Can you relate that to your own experience or your mother's experience?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because without organizations like the Irish Wheelchair, my mother wouldn't have got out much. You know what I mean? And it's a basic fact. And, you know, there's no lockdown. Everyone's walking around, minding their own. But even things like me meeting my friends, and I go, is there steps up to that pub? And they'll go, no, there's definitely not. I'll arrive there, there's 6 steps. Because no one takes any notice of steps when steps aren't a challenge. So you don't take notice of anything when anything's not a challenge. It's only when it becomes a challenge or it's out of your bounds, then it becomes hard for you. So we tend to, like, it's just one of those things. I would have never missed walking until I couldn't do it. You know, it's one of those things.
And it's a great point that you make about how we design things, particularly in the urban environment. You know, shopping centres that have steps going up to them, cobblestones, which are nice to look at, but are not very practical if you're someone
in Galway.
Precisely. I mean, it's tough enough using the cobbles after a few pints. But if you're using crutches or if you're using a wheelchair, it's, you know, near on impossible. And there are so many things, and even benches during the pandemic. I saw some councils introduce benches that would have space.
Things. There's helping and there's almost pity moves. And that was a complete and utter pity move. Any disabled organization or disabled person I knew was laughing their head off at that thing. Okay. You know what I mean? It was like, put the special one there in the corner. Most people are saying, like, we have a seat. It's a wheelchair, and we'd rather turn facing the person we're talking to instead of side to side. You know what I mean? So it's like, I didn't agree with that yoke at all. I just thought it was cat.
But it's important to involve people with disabilities in these decisions. So, as you said,
involve them in the planning. Yeah,
precisely, and then they can get the thumbs up or the thumbs down before they actually get rolled out.
Not a lot of people that have never experienced disability or been around a disabled person or having a disabled person in their family making and designing these things and then saying, now disabled people would be happy. You know what I mean?
Sure. Back to comedy and Farmer Michael, who you modestly described as the farmer character that you did, who got a few views online earlier. To people who haven't heard about him, who is he? What are his opinions on the world?
He's basically your granddad or everyone's granddad or uncle, who is backwards in his views, who's steadfast, he can't be wrong. He's homophobic, he's every phobic. He's just all of it put together. But he's so ignorantly so of all those things that there's almost an endearing feature about him, that he's so wrong. Like, he'll bring up any topic and he's so wrong with it that you can see, you know, the ridiculousness of his views. Like, at the beginning, a lot of people were taking it for face value and thought it was a real person. And that kind of disturbed me a bit because, you know, they'd be there, he's saying the gays or the blacks. And I was like, no, that's kind of not the point. He's making fun of people that hold your views. But as the months and the years went on, more people kind of got what I was doing. But it's still always open to misinterpretation and misunderstanding, which often happens. But most people get it.
I was going to ask that question because with the pandemic, we certainly have seen the rise of, you know, conspiracy theories with regards to COVID-19 and the vaccinations. Have you addressed topics like those with Farmer Michael?
Yeah, I addressed one saying something about vaccines and it was taken down. You know, so yeah, right. You couldn't even do that satirically, where I was literally pulling the piss out of anti-vaxxers for about a minute and 45 seconds, and they took it down. There's no room for satire in the world. You can't, like, it kind of makes me laugh that you're fighting their battle and they still take it down.
It seems absurd, to be honest. Yeah. And satire is such a powerful way to tackle these. I'm going to be kind and just call them conspiracy theories. I could be less kind and call them other things. But, you know, fighting hatred and fighting, you know, people with wild theories about things, fighting that with humor is such a powerful way to do it because it undermines their argument entirely.
Yeah, exactly. It makes people laugh at them as opposed to giving them a platform. Like, it's satire is one of the earliest ways those without power could target those in power without being massacred.
Do you feel that comedy is maybe under threat in some ways if social media giants are taking down, or their algorithms are taking down, posts which address in any way topics that are meant to be taboo or forbidden?
See, it's almost kind of, they're in a hard situation because obviously it's not humans doing it, because then it wouldn't happen. But they couldn't have humans doing it because there's too many people on Facebook and Twitter and all these. So obviously it's the bots and the algorithm, and they look for keywords. So if there's keywords in a video or a title that like coronavirus doesn't exist, that's going to be gone. You know what I mean? Unless it's quoted, blah, 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 says coronavirus doesn't exist, blah, blah. So it's almost like you have to start perfecting your own ability to read what the algorithm will think before you even have a chance to put a sketch together. So you're like, you have to second guess a system before you even make a video. So yeah, it becomes a kind of a social media masterclass, as well as trying to make it a few jokes.
Tell me about the gig that you've got, or the gigs that you've got lined up in January of next year.
We're doing Derry, Belfast, Cork, Limerick, all the usual suspects. So I think that's kicking off in January, mid-January, I think. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that and hoping it'll go smoothly, and hoping that people will, because people are still not kind of, comfortable enough to like commit and buy tickets, because they still feel like it's not going to go ahead. So I'm just hoping that the trust will be there and things will be opened up and things will be back to normal, and people will come and we'll put on a show and get back to normal.
Who knows what the situation is at the moment? The Gavin James concert's on tonight, and they're still trialing concerts. But yours might be among the first gigs to be back at full capacity without restrictions, maybe, which would make them very special. Yeah,
absolutely. So hopefully, fingers crossed, because if you have to postpone it again, I'm going to go mad. I'm going to go full on mad. I'm going to do a live stream and just go nuts.
And you'll definitely never get back on Facebook.
No, I'll be taken down immediately.
That's another episode of the COVID Lives podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening, and please subscribe and leave a review. Talk to you soon.